Whether you're working on the degree or you've just graduated, you're probably wondering what's next.
Well, don't worry. We were wondering exactly the same thing.
From auditions to young artist training programs and beyond, we've been there and we got your back.
This is Between the Notes, real talk for singers chasing the dream.
Welcome to Chapter 4 of our Singer's Handbook, How to Self-Tape, right? This is definitely one of those ingredients where you're going to be sending off your materials, whether it's via Yap Tracker or cold emails to different producing companies or submitting your materials to competitions. And you've got to make sure, as we've said previously, that all of your materials need to be top-notch because of that first impression, right?
Yeah. But this is the one. This is where you show your artistry.
Sure.
This is where you show what you can do.
So let's get into it. One of the most important things to think about when you're self-taping is where you're going to do it. What's the venue, right?
And the acoustic, kind of most importantly, right?
So I think we all have connections with different churches, whether we are, currently a soloist at a particular church, or we have a friend or a parent or somebody. And oftentimes churches can be great venues to do recordings. It just depends on, like you were saying, Brian, like it depends on the acoustic. Is it too wet? Is it too dry? And I think what we're looking for is something that's not going to be overwhelmingly on either side.
Indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that oftentimes these concert venues, and I know one of the churches that I grew up in, when they did their rebuild, they ended up making their sanctuary sort of a well-known performance venue.
Okay.
When it wasn't being used for their church purposes.
Sure.
And the acoustic that they're shooting for is when there's like 600 people in that building.
Exactly.
So I think when you're self-taping, you gotta be aware of all of these different things, mic placement, of course, and how that's going to affect the acoustic. And so,
sure,
I think you want to make sure that the lighting is also good, right? Like you don't want anything that's going to be like a ton of natural light just like pouring in,
because you get really heavy shadows where there's not the natural light.
Sure. Yeah. So just things to think about when you're choosing that venue. And I think taking your time, traveling around town, contacting your friends, making sure that you've sort of sought out the best places you can possibly find is worth your time to make sure you've got a good video at the end.
Absolutely.
The other thing that we got to think about is who's going to play for you, right?
Very important.
Equally important, maybe I should say, to your singing is who's going to be playing for you.
Sure.
So it goes without saying, but you want to make sure that you always plan in advance to hire a pianist that knows your repertoire and is preferably someone that you can hire that you've rehearsed with, right?
I mean, coached with, rehearsed with, somebody who knows your voice, who can kind of say, oh, that was great, but maybe you could do it a little bit better. It just will help you so much down the road and save you a lot of time if you can just work with someone who you work well with.
And even if you don't have someone like that, if you're just starting out, you haven't really built a relationship yet, I think, a recommendation from your voice teacher or from the School of Music or from a friend who has a pianist that they have a good relationship with, make sure that you rehearse with them at least once, maybe twice, 3 times, so that you can kind of get the vibe with each other and you feel comfortable before you go into this recording session.
For sure.
Yeah. When we're talking about the pianist, I think it's also important to talk about what your responsibilities as a singer is to provide to that pianist, right?
The music, clearly marked. Let's start there.
Yeah, let's start there, right? Not every pianist, even in 2025, is really cool about using an iPad.
Sure.
So it's really important that you ask those questions. Do you feel comfortable playing from an iPad?
Right.
Because I know, for me personally, I keep all of my scores on my iPad Pro. And so when I do the occasional audition, still at this time in my life, I absolutely ask the pianist that's playing for me, hey, do you feel comfortable with this? Or would you prefer a binder with sheet music in it? And again, it's just making sure that they feel the most comfortable. And if they do want a binder, I think it's so important to make sure that we have a few little sort of boxes checked, right? We want it to be, like you said, organized. We want it to make sure that the music that you're giving your pianist is clearly marked. If you have any cuts, you need to discuss those with your pianist. Yeah. And this is why it's so good to have the rehearsals with them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really couldn't imagine doing something like this with someone who I've never worked with before. I mean, I know sometimes it has to happen, and especially in live auditions, this is an issue. But when you're doing a recording, the preparation is key in every aspect, and that's how we're gonna, that's why we're saying this, just as a checklist for you to think of, so that you don't go out and get a recording and then all of a sudden, oh, the camera lighting is off, or the acoustic is too whatever, or there's something in the background that I didn't take out, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent points. So when you're prepping that binder, and I think it's a good idea to have both, right? Have your set list on your iPad so that it's
Absolutely.
really easy, digitally, but also have that audition folder because you're going to run across pianists that are just like, oh, nope, I don't play from iPads.
Yeah.
And then you can't be like, oh, shoot. I don't, so have your binder put together. And I mean, I might have gone a little down the road of being too organized, but I think it's better to be too organized than not enough. And
Oh,
so
100%. Yeah.
if you
I
think
mean,
about those dividers that you can
mhm.
get, or you can get them on Amazon, you can get them
Yeah.
anywhere, like Office Depot or whatever. But it's like they're color coded and they come with like a table of contents, and they sell them where there's like 5 or 8 or 10
Sure.
or
Yeah.
15, whatever it is. What I would do is I would use those, and so that the first thing when you open up your binder, you're met with a table of contents, and it'll say like number 1, and it's like a green number 1, right? And
Right.
that's where your starting aria is, or whatever.
Yeah.
Number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you want to do. And then you make sure that those pieces are clearly marked, clear copies, Xerox
Mhm.
copies, right? They're not all blurry or anything.
Right.
And that the aria is, you can write the title of the aria on the little blank on that title page. So it's so easy for a pianist to just be like, oh, we're going to do that one next. That's number
Right.
4.
Right. And you
Um,
want the recording process to be as smooth and calm as possible. That's how
right.
you're going to get the best capture of your singing. I mean, certainly for a live audition, you got to have that there so that the pianist is not fumbling through your binder for 30 seconds while everybody waits for you.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's the better, the clearer, the more organized, the better.
Yeah. I mean, it might go without saying, but please, please, please don't staple your pages together. Your pianist is turning pages
Right.
rather rapidly, and they can
Right.
very easily cut their fingers.
Sure.
Also, don't put pages into those clear see-through plastic divider things, because the glare from the lights are going to cause issues. So
Right.
the easiest thing to do is to either print double-sided pages, but sometimes that can be a rather light texture if it's just that white paper that you get from a Xerox machine.
Yeah, and
So
then you
what I
can
used
kind
to
of
do,
see the other side.
right, you can kind of see through it almost, right? So what I would do is I'd print 2 separate pages, but then I
Right.
would line them up and I would use Scotch tape, and I'd put
Yeah.
one at the bottom, one in the middle, and one at the top, and then make sure your 3 ring hole punch, and maybe even use those little white circle. I'm sure there's a name for them, but those little
Yeah.
stickers that can
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
reinforcers, right?
Reinforcers. Yeah.
The hole punch reinforcer
Right.
sticky thingy.
Yeah.
You can put those on there, and so that way you've just got everything organized, clear in a binder, ready for your pianist. Let's talk a little bit about the attire for recording. What do you think?
Sure. I mean, I think, keeping in mind what the backdrop is going to be, for instance, if your backdrop is black or dark like this, you might not want to wear something black. You want to find something that has a nice contrast to it. But, also patterns, the way that they come out, sometimes things look great in person. They just don't capture well in the video.
Well, same thing that John Matthew Myers was saying about the
Yeah,
headshots, right?
right.
Same
Absolutely.
idea.
And again, these are things you want to think about before you get there, because it's too late once you're there.
Yeah.
And so just the more planning, the smoother the whole process will be. And I think, you can go as casual or professional as is kind of required and needed, or, think about that. Like, I think for guys, generally at least a collared shirt, if not a blazer to go over it. Again, it just looks professional. It looks like you're serious about your job. If you feel like you can, pull it off without the jacket, then make sure you have a really nice, iron steamed shirt so that it just looks really professional again.
Yeah, I would stay within that business casual, at least in America, right? There is a
Right.
bit of a difference between America and Europe. Europe tends to be a little bit more casual.
Sure.
But in America, I think, and you're trying to make these videos as versatile as you can for a wide variety. So voice competitions, different opera company things, young artist
Yeah.
training programs. So I think if you lean on the side of business casual to casual, you don't need to wear a tuxedo by any means. And women, please
Right.
don't wear gowns. But I mean,
Sure.
basically your normal audition attire, I think, is a safe rule of thumb.
Agreed.
Yeah. Please, please, please make sure that you test out your equipment and charge your devices.
Right.
Bring extension cords. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to get to the venue and be like, oh no, this won't work. The battery's dead. Or, oh, there's no power outlet right here where I need it to be,
Yeah, I mean, maybe even one of those USB power banks, that you
Yeah.
can just, kind of charge anything. It's just a backup. You just want to make sure that you're not wasting anybody's time, especially the pianist, or, if you've hired someone else to do the recording, then it falls on them. But if we're doing this ourselves as a self-tape, you really need to make sure that you've just got everything covered.
Yeah. And for that matter, make sure that the instrument is tuned, right? Like
Oh, gosh.
sometimes, you don't want to get to
Yes.
the place and everything's ready. You got all your stuff and then be like, wait a minute,
That
what's
is definitely
happening?
not a quick fix.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, preparation is key.
Yeah,
Finding the venue, thinking about what you're going to wear. Um, Obviously, in the next episode, we're going to talk about all the different recording equipment that you can find to help
right.
capture the best videos.
Yeah,
But as you prepare yourself for these things, these are key highlighted bullet points to keep in mind, right? So
yeah.
let's quickly go through a little bit of a do's and don'ts for self taping, right?
Let's hear it.
Do make sure that you get a full body video recording. Oftentimes, the way that the camera gets placed, you might accidentally cut off your knees or something.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every company that's requesting these videos wants a full body shot. They want to get a full opportunity to see how the artist looks on screen.
Yeah, and especially if you're going to move around a little bit, you don't want to look like you're floating, right?
This is true. This is true. This is
And you could
true.
always crop it later in iMovie if you decide that you want something closer to put on YouTube or something like that. But if you don't get the whole shot when you do the initial capture, you can't go back and do it.
Yeah, you
It's
can
got to be
always zoom in for TikTok and Instagram. You can't zoom out for
absolutely,
the thing that you submit. So,
totally.
yeah. Do rehearse with your pianist in the space so that you really have a comfortable feel of what it feels like to perform in that venue with the piano, with that instrument.
Yeah,
Um,
perhaps you need to like put it on the half stick, or you need to open it up or something. You just want to get the balance right.
right? Do try to have a friend share the recording process with you so that you are able to build in time to rest.
I think this is ideal.
Yeah.
Even if the other singer, a friend is not singing, having that time to rest, having someone to push record and make sure that everything is there will just allow you to be the singer and the artist that you first and foremost want to show
Right.
in this video.
Inevitably, we always feel rushed. It's like you
Oh,
do
yeah.
one take and you're like, oh, that felt good. Yeah, let's go on to the next one. And it's like, no. Wait, give
Sure.
yourself 10 minutes. I know it might feel weird just sitting there for 10 minutes in silence, but
Yeah.
it's more important that you find time to rest, drink some water, whatever you need to do to
Yeah.
really be at your best for the next selection.
Totally. Totally. Well, if I can, I just wanted to add one more thing too, is that
Yeah.
don't procrastinate. Do not do this video the day before it's due. Do it a week before it's due.
Or a month,
I mean, whatever you have. That way, if there's a problem, there's an opportunity to redo it. And you don't have to just say, well, this is all I've got and I've got to send it. This is key.
Yeah. Just a further point about not feeling rushed. It's okay to just sit there and rest, even though it might feel weird, like I said, but you have already paid for the hall.
Mm-hmm.
You've paid for the pianist. So don't feel guilty. You're not wasting anyone's time, right?
This is a time where you can be a divo or a diva and just be like, I'm taking my time. I'm doing this in the way that that feels best, and I'll give the best product.
Yeah. So do remember to have fun, right?
Yeah.
We're there to have fun. I don't know why, but recording for some people can get so in your head about it.
Sure.
And you feel like the pressure is on. And in fact, it's the exact opposite. The
Yeah.
pressure is off. This is not a live performance. If you mess up, you just stop. Who cares?
Right.
Go back, redo.
Right.
So remember to have fun. Remember to perform. Do make sure that you eat well and that you're hydrated and that you
Rested.
feel like,
Yeah.
rested, all those good things. But again, the great thing about recordings is that they are not live, so the pressure is off.
And if you could get your teacher to come and be in their space, this would be wonderful. I know it's
Yeah.
not always possible, but if it is possible, having your teacher there to warm you up, to make sure that I've done this for students many times, and it's just easier if a take is not going well, I can just say, okay, let's just stop here.
Right.
Save your vocal energy for one that we actually get something we can use, because in these recordings you can't cut and then come in. You have to have a one take option, sing through.
Right.
So
Right.
don't waste your energy if you don't have to.
Hopefully these points can help you make your best self-tape experience the best it can be. And as always, please remember to subscribe to our channel, like these videos, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and we will see you next week, where we will be talking about all the different recording equipment that you can use when you make these recordings.
See you then.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Between the Notes. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And join us next week for more behind-the-scenes stories, laughs, and operatic gold coming your way.